Hello, I'm live. Hello, everybody. I hope you are well. I hope you're well. June Allen here, your racial sobriety mentor. And I'm a mum, for those of you that don't know me, an entrepreneur, and I teach people how to heal from the impact of racism, self-hate. Hello, everybody coming in. Good to see you. Good to see you. Just waiting for a few more people to come in, and I'll introduce myself again. Hello, Kenya. How are you? You okay? I'm going to get started here in a minute. I'm just going to share this to my page and my group. I hope you've all had a really good day. Okay, so let me just share this. Hello, Michael. How are you? It's nice to see everybody. My cat's just come in to join the fun. Okay, so I've done that. So now I just need to share it to my, there we go, nearly there. Okay, so, right, so I am all done. Okay, great, fabulous. Hi, Andrew. Yes, you finally made it live. Let me see if I can pronounce your name correctly. Please tell me if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Is it Nishika? Nishika, have I pronounced that correctly? Hello, Michael, as well. It's June, not Julie. Thank you for my rose. So lovely to see you all. So lovely to see you all. For those of you that don't know, I'm going to get cracking because I don't want to, I don't want to drag out the bit. But it's so lovely to see everybody. And yes, it's good to see you live. It's good to see, normally there's not always that many people on live, so it's really good to see you all. So for those of you that don't know me or don't know about my work, my name is June Allen from juneallen.net. And I'm a mum, an entrepreneur, and I teach people, particularly Black people, how to heal from the impact of racism and self-hate through racial sobriety, 12-step recovery, personal empowerment, all of that good stuff. So I wanted to come on and chat to you today, just to have a conversation about, how you kind of deal with the impact of racism. We know that there's a lot of stuff been going on. Obviously, there's always stuff going on globally, but particularly, we know that Donald Trump and stuff has been in the UK. And I don't want to talk about him specifically because, he doesn't need any more of a platform than he's already got. But the reason why I wanted to come on and talk to you today is for you to really think about how you feel about yourself as a result of racism. How do you deal with the pain? How do you deal with all of that stuff? Because we know that racism is kind of coming at us from all angles, all the time, every day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And so that is going to have an impact on us. It's going to have an impact on how we feel about ourselves, how we treat each other, how we love each other, how we raise our children. So, and the way that we behave is going to, those choices are made first and foremost by how we feel about ourselves and how we treat ourselves as a result of living under the system of racism. And it's not just, I think it's important as well to say that it's not just about the overt racism. If somebody calls you the N-word or somebody's been racist to you in the workplace directly or something like that, it's not just that stuff that causes racial stress. Racial stress can be, yes, it's the overt stuff, but it's also the overt stuff as well, and like the stuff you see on social media. I don't know about you guys, but I can't remember the last time I went on social media and didn't see some sort of story about, a Black person being abused. How many, put a 1 in the chat if you've ever had a day that you've gone onto your social media and you've never ever seen something about racism in your news feed. Put a 1 if you've never had that happen. I'll wait for that one. I bet most of us is going to be a yes. Most of us is going to be a yes, because it's become like, maybe it's the people I've got on my timeline actually where I always see it, but you know, I have a lot of positive stuff as well. But most days when I go on social media, there's always a new story about something that's happened. And so it is important to recognize that that is going to have an impact on us, and to really understand, you know, what racial stress is and the impact that it has on us. So yeah, it's not just the overt stuff, like I was saying before, it's the stuff that we witness on social media. And that, so when we see other people that look like us getting abused, that also causes racial stress. So to define racial stress is the physical, emotional, spiritual impact, the response that we have to racism. And sometimes we're not even aware that it happens. Sometimes, obviously, if it's something that's really violent, we might have a stronger visceral response. But when it's kind of like the little microaggressions and stuff that we kind of go about our day, you know, we might not. Our responses might be a little bit more subtle. So part of the healing process and actually understanding ourselves, the whole process of self-knowledge, is becoming aware of our responses to things. Are we reacting to things, or are we responding? And to actually do it in a really sober and healthy way. So today what I want to do is I want to share 3 really compassionate ways that you can begin to do that for yourself, that you can really start to not just understand how you feel about things, but to actually take action around these things. And you're going to feel so much better. I'm so excited to share this stuff with you, because these are tools that I actually use myself. These are tools that I actually use myself. And I find them so helpful, because now that I know when I'm starting to feel agitated, I know when I'm starting to feel angry and stuff like that. And just to have a set of tools actually really helps to get through the day. Some days I feel more vulnerable than others. Some days I feel like, yeah, I'm the Black Panther, I can do whatever. And other days I feel vulnerable. Some days I just feel really vulnerable. And so I need a reminder of what I need to do to kind of take care of myself. And there's nothing wrong with feeling vulnerable or feeling, you know, like I'm strong, but it's about honoring all the whole spectrum of who we are as human beings. Because quite often in response to racism, what we do is we shut our emotions down. That is kind of like has been our survival technique for a long time, is to shut ourselves off from our emotions, because we don't want to feel it. We don't want to deal with it. We don't want to have to face the vulnerability of what it means to be a Black person. So quite often it's easier for us just to not think about it. And we tell everybody else to be quiet about it as well. Don't be emotional. Don't be this, don't be that. You know, quite often if somebody's, you know, being really emotional over something, what that might mean is that maybe they just haven't had the space to be able to share how they feel. And so that's why they're having such a strong response to it. So quite often that person doesn't just need compassion, they need empathy. Sorry, just tells me when I'm having a mummy moment. No, mummy's in the middle of something, darling. No, Zuri, come on, be respectful, please. I'm going in my room. No, go and sit in the kitchen, please. Thank you. Sorry about that. I was just having a mummy moment. What was I saying? Yeah, so it's important to be really clear of, yeah, I was talking about your emotions and stuff like that, and being clear about I've completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, I was saying about your emotions, and I was talking about how when you're actually talking to somebody else who's being over emotional, it means if that person's being over emotional, quite often it means that either number one, they haven't had the space to actually deal with their emotions, so they actually need empathy and they need compassion. And sometimes I think a lot of people try and silence other people that are being emotional because it triggers their own stuff that they've been trying to suppress. So just think about that for a moment. If somebody around you is being emotional for whatever reason, and you feel really triggered by it, and what your immediate response is not to empathize, or to feel compassion towards that person, but to try and shut them down and to try and shame them for being emotional, what is that saying about your emotion, about how you feel about your emotions? And this is something that a lot of us as Black people do, because we've been trained not to feel our emotions. We've been, a lot of times we're shamed for it. We're shamed for it. So we've kind of taught ourselves to not say anything, to swallow the pain, to swallow the anger, to swallow the shame, to swallow all of those emotions that we have about being a human being. And our emotions are there to teach us what we need to do to take care of ourselves. Our emotions are not the enemy. Our emotions are there to teach us where we need to take care of ourselves. If we're having strong emotion about something, it quite often means that we need to set a boundary, or we need to step back, or we need to keep quiet, or we need to go somewhere quiet so we can think about our feelings, we can think about what's going on. That's quite often what needs to happen in order for us to just get present and get quiet, to try and listen to what our emotions are trying to tell us. Our emotions are they're like another language that we need to learn. That's really what self-knowledge is about. Pyramids is one thing, but self-knowledge is really about understanding your emotions. It's really about understanding your emotions and understanding what your emotions are trying to tell you. It's the language of the heart. Emotions are the language of the heart. So whether your emotions are coming out in the way you express yourself, or in your body, sometimes your emotions are coming out in your body. I experienced that a lot, actually, when I started processing a lot of the anger that I had around the internalized racism, the self-hate. A lot of it I felt in my muscle tension. A lot of it I felt in my body, because I wasn't expressing it in a way that was getting the energy out. Emotions are energy. And if you're not expressing that energy, it's going to impact your body on a physical level. And I believe that's what a lot of physical sickness is for a lot of us, because we're holding a lot of that stuff in, So I'm going to show you, I'm not going to show you, but I'm going to share 3 things that you can do that are really going to help you. So I have like a 3-step system that I teach my the people that I work with, the students that I have and stuff, about how to deal with this stuff. So the first thing that you need to do is, first of all, you need to find a safe place to be able to discharge the energy. I was saying before that emotions are energy. You got to find a safe place to discharge it. And that is so important, because like I was saying before about, being around other people that just don't have the listening for it, because they might have a lot of their own pain and stuff like that, so they can't deal with it. So therefore, they're gonna shut you down. It's important to find a safe space where you're going to be able to process that stuff without judgment and without shame. For me, those of you that have heard me talk about my lives before, I've been in 12-step recovery from addiction to self-hate for many years. So, I go to recovery meetings. I talk to my other Black fellows, my other people of color in recovery. I talk to them about my stuff. I have an amazing therapist, a Black man, who I've been going to him for, the last 4 or 5 years. Absolutely awesome. But I do these things consistently because I need a safe space to do it. So that's good in terms of talking stuff out. But on a physical level, we also need to get that stuff out as well, like I was saying before. So one of the things that I always teach people to do, especially when you're dealing with anger, and if any person under the system of racism is going to have anger, let's have a moment to get honest about anger. Okay, Black people have every right to be angry. I don't care if people call me the angry Black woman. I don't care, because I have every goddamn reason to be angry. We are getting abused every single day under this system. So anger is a normal response to being abused. The only thing that I do differently is that number one, I honor the anger. I respect it because the anger is telling me that something's wrong. And then what I do is I take responsibility for the anger by doing something physical to help me discharge it out of the body. That means it's not going to stay in my body and become a physical illness. And number two, is there's less likely that I'm going to project it onto somebody else. When I say projection, it means I'm not going to put it on somebody else. So if I'm angry about something, I'm not going to take it out on my child, or I'm not going to take it out on my partner, or I'm not going to take it out on my work colleagues. I'm taking full responsibility for that. And one of the ways that I deal with my anger is to, I do pillow beating. Now, obviously, if you've got really young children at home or you've got pets, don't do this. You're going to have to find another way. I'll tell you another tool in a minute for that. But if you've got a quiet moment, set a timer for 2 minutes and just think about where in your body the anger is. For me, a lot of my anger is held in my shoulders. It's held in my shoulders. And just beat the bed for 2 minutes. Set the timer and do it for 2 minutes. You will find that stuff really does, it really helps, because it gives you an opportunity to really get that stuff out of your system. And 2 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're beating the bed for 2 minutes because you're getting that anger out, it feels like it's going on for ages. It feels like it's going on for ages, but it really helps. Once the timer's gone off, just give yourself a moment to breathe. And sometimes when I've used this tool, I'll quite often cry. I'll quite often cry afterwards, because the energy's kind of been released out of my body. And so it allows for the emotion to come up, because when anger is not released, it gets stuck. It can get stuck. And then once the anger is out, because you've had the physical release, then you can really start to, you can maybe get, you're in a much calmer space, and you can start looking at what's actually underneath the anger. What is the actual thing that triggered you? So, oh, hi, Lisa. Hello. So discharging the anger out of your body and stuff like that is really important. Really important to actually do that. And trust me, it works every time. On Sunday evening, I did a radio show on, I don't know if you know, the Cows radio program with Gusty Renegade. There's quite a few people that are on my friends list that listen to it. But yeah, I did this radio show with Gusty Renegade on Sunday. I'm on the monthly panel for the Global Sunday Talk Show. I'll actually put it on my website soon, because it should be out on iTunes within the next couple of days. That's at juneallen.net if you're interested, by the way. And so I did the radio broadcast, and there was a brother on there sharing about the violence and stuff in Nigeria, and he was talking about colonialism and all the rest of it, and how a lot of the violence and stuff that happens over there now is kind of like leftovers of colonialism, and how violence was, talking about the violence in his family and all of this kind of, it was a painful show. It was a really painful show. And we talked about Donald Trump and how, the sort of impact that it has on people's self-esteem and all of that kind of stuff. So I had that on Sunday evening. And then I woke up on Monday morning, and I logged onto my social media, and I saw an article about, 100 black bodies had been found in, I think it was Texas. And basically, I was really irritated. And even though all this had happened, I wasn't clear about what that was about. So all I knew was I just felt angry. I just knew that I felt angry. And then I thought I'd do the pillow beating exercise. And then as soon as after I'd done it, I felt so much better. And I thought, okay, I felt angry because of all of the stuff that I listened to in the that I had to listen to and share about in the radio broadcast, and then seeing this thing on my timeline the next day. It was difficult. It was difficult. But the reason why I was able to stay sober in all of those things was because I was able to honor the fact that I was angry and that I was feeling upset about these things, and I was able to process them in a healthy way, which means I'm not going to take it out on my child. I'm not going to take it out on other people. So being able to acknowledge that anger that we have as Black people, having to deal with racism, whether it's internal within our families or whether it's external when we're talking about Donald Trump or whoever, it's important for us to be able to honor that as human beings. So being able to discharge that out of your system is really important. If you can't do the pillow beating exercise, then just have a really good cardio workout, because that's going to be the same thing. And think about that stuff coming out of your body as well. So anything from running, just cycling, boxing, anything like that that's really gonna help you get that stress out of your body is really gonna help. So that's number one, to be able to discharge the energy. Number two is reflection. This is the second step. So I was saying earlier about once you've actually done the pillow beating exercise, you're gonna feel different because the energy actually would have shifted. So that's where the reflection comes in. You're able to really think about what's underneath it and what is it, specifically that's upsetting you, and can you do anything about that? If you can, then obviously you can think about, what steps you need to take. If it's something that you're powerless over, then that's something that you need to just hand over to your higher power, however you interpret God, whether it's Ra or or the Bible, or however you do it. It's just God as you understand it. Nature, for me, it's nature and Ra and Ma'at. That's me. But however you understand God, that you need to, whatever you can't control, you need to hand that over to your higher power. But the reflection part of it, you can do a lot of that also in your journal as well. You can do a lot of that in your journal. And don't forget another tool as well. If you can't rage, especially if you're a single parent, if you can't do the rage pillow beating exercises that I talked about previously, you can do it in your journal. You can cuss out in your journal. I've done that so many times. For any single parents out there, I have done that so many times because I just have not been in a position to be able to get in the thing and kind of discharge it, or I can't get out of the house because I've got, and I've had a young child. So being able to write out that stuff in your journal and cuss whoever you need to cuss is a brilliant way to get that stuff out. And then also, once you've done that rage journaling, then again, you create the space to be able to connect with your higher self. Connect. That's not to say that anger is not part of your higher self. Your anger is your higher self as well. That's your higher powers telling you that something's wrong, but it's just connecting to a different part of your higher self. So you're able to reflect and you're in a lot more calmer space. So use your journal, use your writing to help you reflect. Again, it's another way for you to understand yourself, understanding it. That's what self-knowledge again is about, by writing. When you write that stuff and you go back, a couple of days later or whatever, and read what you've written, you can really begin to understand who you are and what your triggers are. And that's where the empowerment is. When you understand what your triggers are, that's when you get to make a different choice. Quite often, if you don't know what your triggers are, you're just responding. So you're reacting. You're just reacting to things all the time. Things happen, you react, you go into shame, you go into shutdown, and then you're constantly reacting all the time. And you can't, that's not impact. You can't be empowered. You can't empower yourself. You can't, it's difficult to be in healthy relationships when you're constantly reacting because you don't understand what's happening to you. You're just reacting to things. But once you start to really understand what's going on for you, and you start to take ownership of who you are as a human being, start to write that stuff out and to understand, have more compassion for yourself. Black people need more compassion than anybody. Compassion and empathy is what we need. We really, really need those things. So practicing these things that I'm teaching you is how you self-nurture. This is what is known as self-parenting. So do the stuff in your journal. If you have a safe space to be able to share with someone else, then that's going to be really powerful thing as well, because in that space of reflection with somebody else who can hear you, don't stop going to people who can't hear you. There are so many of us that keep going to people that can't hear you, and then you get really upset because that person can't hear you, and then you just get more and more frustrated. You get more and more frustrated and angry because so number one, you're upset in the first place because you want to get your stuff out, and then you go to somebody, it might even be a family member, and that family member can't hear you. They're just like, oh, don't worry about that. What are you worrying about that for? Stop being so emotional. Go to somebody who's going to hear you, because Black people need to be heard. So the reason why so many of us are so pissed and so upset and so angry is because we don't know how to hear each other. We're not used to being heard. We're not used to being heard. We always told, swallow the pain. So, you're strong, you can handle it. all that nonsense. We need compassion and we need to be heard. So find a space that can hear you. I was saying earlier, the places where I go to be heard, I have an amazing therapist. Okay, I've got my recovery fellows that I talk to. I have my I go to meetings, and I've got other spaces that I go to as well. You know, if you want to talk to me about stuff like that, you can schedule a call with me at callme.juneallen.net. If you want to email me about more stuff I've been talking about, you can email me at info@yardofgreatness.com. You know, I was talking to my the ladies in my Facebook group today, and I was talking to them about the importance and the power of everyday courage. Everyday courage is so important, because when we normally think about courage, we think about all the big things that people do, the amazing, oh, isn't that person amazing for doing it? I could never do that. But sometimes it's the really, really small things, the small courageous things that really matter. It's having those difficult conversations with people. It's making that phone call to somebody to ask for help. Those are the small courageous things that sometimes really matter. We think that the big things are the only things that matter. No, they don't. If there's anything that you take from this broadcast today, okay, it's about the whole concept of patting yourself on the back, yeah, giving yourself props for the everyday courage. The everyday courage. Sometimes everyday courage is just getting out of bed and going to work to earn a few coins, even if you don't like the workplace. That's everyday courage. Everyday courage is telling your child that you love your child, even when your parents didn't do it for you, because that takes courage to do it when it wasn't done for you. That's everyday courage. You got to learn to give yourself props for those things. We don't give ourselves enough props, and that's how you start to build your internal self-esteem. Self-nurturing and doing all of these things is all about learning how to take care of ourselves first. Quite often we can look for people externally to nurture us, because we weren't taught how to nurture ourselves. But we have to learn how to do that first. We've got to learn how to take care of ourselves first. And I don't mean that in a kind of like, oh, I can take care of myself, I don't need you, I don't need a man, I don't need all of that. I'm not talking about that, because that is just sabotage. That's just sabotage. We do need each other. We need other human beings. But what I'm talking about is having a balance between self-parenting and self-nurturing, and also honoring your human part that needs to belong to a group of people, that needs to feel loved, that needs to know that you've got a sense of meaning about your life. Those things are really, really important. Really, really important. So the last step, so we've got discharge, we've got reflection, and the last one is to nurture. And that's kind of what I've been talking about in the last couple of minutes, actually, is to learn how to nurture yourself. So you've discharged the rage out of your body. Yeah, you've discharged the energy out of your body, the negative energy. Then you've reflected on it. You can think about, okay, why was I upset? What do I need to do about it? What do I need? And the nurture bit is actually taking action on what you need. So it might be that you just need to go in the park. Go around nature. Just go and be in nature. Sometimes being in nature, for me, that's prayer. Being in nature is prayer, because quite often, you know, I'll go and sit under a tree. The trees will talk to me. That's God. The trees and the leaves, and sitting around in the grass with my shoes off. That's how I talk to God, and I don't have to say anything, because I can feel the presence of my higher power. I can reconnect, and God is not an external thing. So when I go and sit under a tree, it's like I'm reconnecting to that part of myself that is already God. I'm not looking for no external thing in the clouds to tell me what I already know. I already know it. I just need to reconnect it. I already know what I need to do. I just need to reconnect to that source. Did you get that? Quite often, Alice Walker talks about this. She talks about one of the ways that we give what did she say? One of the ways that we give up our power is thinking that we don't have any. That's how racism works. We're constantly told that we're ugly, that we're stupid, that we're violent, that we're this, that we're that. You know, Donald Trump is there talking about, oh, we don't want to upset, you know, you don't do immigration because you're kind of ruining the culture of the, you know, of the, all that nonsense. You know, so we think that we don't have any power. We think we absorb that. We absorb it. We think we're ugly. We think we're stupid. We think we can't do nothing. That we haven't got any power. But you do. But you've got to start in here. Empowerment starts in here, and it starts with the most simplest things. A lot of us are worrying about how to deal with Donald Trump. Leave Donald Trump. Let him stay there with his nonsense. That's a sickness. That's a spiritual sickness right there. Him and his ilk. Leave him. What we need to focus on is how we're going to deal with the self-hate. How are we going to deal with the internalized racism? That's how you begin to get empowered. When you've got stronger internal boundaries, you can deal with the external stuff. The external stuff happens when you've got the internal stuff going on. Yeah. And I talk about this more specifically I've got a free ebook, 7 Steps to Unlock Your Sister Superpowers. If you go to superpowers.juneallen.net, you can download the ebook. And I talk about the 7 things that I use in my life, not just the 3 steps that I talked about today, but these are 7 more things. I talk about compassion, which I talked about today, courage, I talked about today, sobriety, which is what I talked about today. What else is in there? Culture, you know, the power of embracing your culture. These are all things that we need to realize that they're already within us. But with everything going on around us all the time, telling us who we are, if we don't make time to get present to how we're absorbing this stuff, we just unconsciously absorb it, and then we act it out. We play it out. It impacts the way that we talk to each other, how we love each other, how we raise our children, how we think about ourselves, how we talk to ourselves. You know, so it's really, really important to not take these things for granted and just kind of understand that you have so much more power than you think you do. But it's in the baby steps. It's in the baby steps. It's in the everyday courage, not the big grand gestures that we think that we need to do in order to be empowered. No, we don't need to do that. It starts with the really small things. Every baby step of courage is a revolutionary act of self-love. That's one of my quotes. Every baby step of courage is a revolutionary act of self-love. Yeah? Don't forget that. Don't forget that. And it doesn't matter how small that baby step is. It matters. Every single baby step matters. Don't worry about anyone else. Don't worry what anyone else is doing. Don't worry about white people doing. Forget white people. Forget them. Forget white supremacy. Focus on what you're doing. What you're doing is most important. Your mental well-being is more important. If you've got a business to build, if you're trying to raise a family, if you're a leader and you've got community groups, you have got to make sure that you are emotionally sober, that you're racially sober, so you can do these things with compassion and conviction. You can't build a business or raise families or lead a group if you're all over the place, if you're broken inside. That's not going to happen. And I know a lot of people might not like me saying that, but that's the truth. That's the truth. There's a lot of us out here doing our best, but we're trying to build these things and we're broken inside. That it's only going to be temporary. If you're broken inside, that's not how you're going to build a legacy. Because without understanding who you are and understanding the impact of racism, it's going to be really hard for you to break those pathologies. Break those pathologies, yeah, for your children, for the next generation. Because you don't understand what's happened to you. You don't understand how you've internalized it. You got to first understand it in order to break it. If you don't understand it, you can't break it. And you've got to do that. And that means doing the work. That means doing the heart work. You can't get around doing the heart work. And the heart work means that you've got to start with these small things. Discharge that stuff out of your body. Discharge that stuff out of your psyche. Reflect. Reflect on what you need. Reflect on the triggers. When you understand the triggers, then you can start to make a different choice about how you respond to certain things, especially when it comes to racism. Racism and white supremacy love it when we're all confused and all upset. They love it, because when we're upset and traumatized, that means we're easily controlled. We're so much more easily controlled when we're upset and confused and angry and upset. You've got to learn how to honor those emotions and channel them, honor them, and process them. So then you can step back into what you need to be doing instead of being controlled by them. That's the issue. The emotion themselves are not bad, but our emotions are like they're bubbling up in us like a pressure cooker, because we haven't got respect for them. We haven't given them the respect that they deserve. And we're trying to do all of these things that we think are good. We're trying to empower ourselves, but we're just overwhelmed with the emotion. So that's why a lot of us find it hard to do this work. Trust me, I know. I was so scared of actually feeling my emotions, because I thought that either I would go and murder somebody because I had so much rage, or that I might harm my child. I was frightened that I would harm my child because I had so much rage. I was so upset. But I learned to respect my emotions. I learned to respect them and honor them and process them. That's how I've become more empowered, because when I feel angry now about something, or I feel upset, or I feel shame even, it doesn't control me, because I know what it is. I understand what it means. So I've got tools, and I use these things in order to process the emotion, so that I can go and do the next right thing. That is self-nurturing. That is self-nurturing. Today I've actually shared those 3 steps with you to help you, and I've got so many trainings. There's another thing that I put in the description, where I talk about how to reclaim your blackness, and that's what that training is all about. And I talk about my story in a lot more detail, but there's 30 tools in there, 10 for each one. 10 to discharge, 10 to reflect, 10 to nurture. There's 30 in total, So there's a lot more stuff there. If you're interested in that, you can go to reclaim.juneallen.net. If you really want to dig deep into that training and dig deep into how you can actually set your day up to deal with this stuff, it's got to become a process. It's got to become something that you prioritize on a daily basis, not just something that you do when you're overwhelmed. Your healing has got to be a daily commitment, because white supremacy is a daily commitment. White supremacy is a daily commitment. So your healing and your empowerment must also be a daily commitment. Non-negotiable, end of subject, period. That's non-negotiable. You've got to start taking care of yourself. And I'm not talking about, it's not about being selfish. It's the whole analogy around putting your gas mask on before you can help somebody else. How can you help somebody else if you're not taking care of yourself? This is why I'm so open and honest about the fact that I go to therapy, and the fact that I still go to my recovery meetings, and I still have a recovery sponsor for my addiction, because I can't help none of you guys. I can't help anybody if I'm not continuing to do the work, because white supremacy still infects me. White supremacy still impacts me. I still have days where I rage. I still have days where I feel awful about myself. But the difference is it ain't gonna cripple me, because I've got tools. And I use them every single day. I use them every single day so that I can show up and be sober, and I can share this stuff with you. I can share this stuff with you, and I can tell you that you don't have to suffer with this stuff. You don't have to hide in this stuff. You don't have to bury your feelings around this stuff, because there is a solution. There is a solution to this stuff. I'm telling you, once you get this stuff, honestly, it changes everything. And it changes everything. I've spoken to so many Black people, that are starting to get this stuff, that are really starting to do this work around racial sobriety. And it is epic, because you understand racism, number one, as a sickness. And number two, you also understand how it impacts you as a person. And then you can begin to let go of what white people do is none of your business. What matters is how you treat yourself as a result of what white people do, or what white supremacy does. That's what's important. Don't get trapped in what white supremacy is doing. Stay focused on how it impacts your brain and focus on that. Focus on setting those boundaries. Focus on processing that stuff out of your brain so you don't end up twisted and upset and riddled with shame about who you are as a Black person. There was a time I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror because I felt so ashamed of being a Black woman. And I didn't even understand that that's what was going on for me. That's before I started doing this work. I had so much shame around being a Black woman that I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. This is the power of this. And now, you know, I've been in recovery from this stuff, from self-hate, since when did I go? I went to my first meeting in 2009. Got my first sponsor in 2010. Yeah. And here I am in 2018 sharing my story with you all. That's the power of this stuff. That's the power of it. And there's more of us that can do this work. I'm not special. I ain't no different to you. I am not special. Sitting here talking to you, this is my higher power. This is my ancestors talking to you. This is not June Allen talking to you. This is my ancestors. This is my higher power talking to you. Because if it was, I said this on another broadcast, if it was me, I'd be gone long time. I'd be gone long time. I'm doing this because I know that this is what needs to happen. And I'm doing this because I know that this is my mission. This is my purpose, to talk to you about this stuff, you know? So you can do this. You can so do this, you know? So give yourself permission to be self-compassionate. Give yourself permission to nurture yourself. You deserve it. If you want self-compassion, you've first got to be compassionate to yourself. Stop looking externally and think about being compassionate to yourself. When was the last time you were compassionate to yourself? Really kind to yourself? Think about those things and start making a list of the things that you can do for yourself that are compassionate. Think about the things that you can do to discharge the stuff out of your energy. I've given you a few tools this evening that you can use. Start writing down your own. And use the list every day. So when you're in that place of, when you're feeling really upset, you can just remember that you've got that list. I do that. Sometimes I'm so in the feelings that I just need a reminder. Oh yeah, I need to do that. I'll pick up the phone and call someone. Oh, June, you forgot you can do A, B, and C. Oh yeah, I forgot. I'll go do that. That's how you get empowered. You know, that's how you get empowered. So use those tools. You know, use those tools. So has anybody got any questions about it? Anybody got any questions about anything that I've shared about tonight? You know, just drop them in the comments. There's a little bit of a delay. Let me just see if there's anything else in there. People have joined, but I haven't seen anybody else's any comments on there. If you've got any other comments or whatever, you can drop them in the comment box. If you don't want to drop any comments in there, I totally understand. You can email me at info@yardofgreatness.com. Let me know what you're struggling with. If you just want to talk or whatever, you can schedule a call with me. Go to callme.juneallen.net. All the links about the Superpowers book, the stuff about reclaiming your blackness is there. And also there is a specific trauma guide as well. There's a trauma guide. That one's absolutely free, the trauma guide. And I go into a lot more detail about the stuff that I spoke to you today. So if you go to trauma.juneallen.net, the link is in the description. You can download that, and there's loads more information in there about how you can deal with your racial trauma. So I empower you this evening, brothers and sisters. I love you. I love my people so much. That's why I'm so passionate about this stuff. And I want my people to win. I want you to be empowered, and I want you to win. But so I share this stuff with love. I share this stuff with passion, and I share it with love because I love my people and I want you to win. I want you to win. Yeah. So that's it for this evening. I'm going to be doing this broadcast, not this particular one, but I'm going to be sharing, you know, once a week. So sign up to my business page, my like page on there, or actually this one. And then you can, you'll get notified when you go live as well. So Have a wonderful evening, and I hope you found this useful. If there's anybody that you think that might be interested in this, that's struggling with racial trauma, that might not even know that they're struggling with racial trauma, that could use it, share it with them. If you know somebody who has a community group that runs a Facebook group with loads of Black people in it, share it with them. If you've got internalized racism going on within your family, and you know somebody who's in your family who might have the listening for it, share it with them. You know, share it with them. Because at the end of the day, I want, you know, it's important that we start this healing. We start this healing. You're welcome, Kenya. You're welcome, darling. So thank you for sharing. Your talk has been very enlightening. You're welcome, darling. I love my people. I love you guys, and I just want you to win. You know, so take what's useful, and what's not useful, just leave it. You don't have to agree with everything that I've shared, you know, but take what's useful and use it. Use it to empower yourself, to love yourself, to nurture yourself, to love on your family, to love on your children, love on your partners, love on your brothers in the street. You know, take that stuff and love on your community, because we need it. Don't underestimate the power that you have. You really have so much more power, you know. So take care. Lots of love, everybody. And I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.